I'm a little nervous today and a little excited and feeling all the feelings because I'm going to share something today that I haven't shared out in the open publicly. And as I do it, it makes me a little nervous to share it. But I think it's important that we share our stories. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that's how I feel about this. Like, I share because I want other people to see that we can go through hard things, that we can have hard things happen to us in our lives, and we can still be okay. And that's really the part of this that I want you to hear. So I'm going to share a part of my story today, like I said, that I have not shared before. And as I do this, know that I share this story out of love. I share this story out of compassion for all people that are involved, all people that have been in my life, all people that are in my life. And yeah, I just want to get the word out there that there is other ways of being, there's other ways of thinking, there's other ways of showing up in the world. So today, as I got up this morning, I knew this is actually a Sunday at the time that I was recording this, but I got up this morning and I was a little fired up, and I knew that I needed to go share a part of my story that I haven't shared because of what I am seeing out in social media, because of some of the things that have come up here recently. I was like, you know what? I need to just share and let people know, what I have discovered, because I believe that it's important. So, what is this all about? So I have been seeing a lot of videos, a lot of people talking about estranged children. And this is a part of my life that has been part of my life for about the last 10 years, in and out. And then recently, in the last 5 years, my husband and I have been part of that. I don't know if you want to call it a tradition. I don't know what you want to call it, of having a child who is no longer in our lives. And it's really interesting because I'm seeing a lot of this on social media and a lot of other people, and there's a lot of different sides to this. There's a lot of different sides. So, as I talk about it today, I want you to know this comes from my own understanding, this comes from my own compassion, and this comes from my learning and growth as someone who desires to see the world through a higher sense of consciousness. Okay, so a higher sense of being, a higher sense of understanding, and not just the way that maybe traditional mainstream sees it. I always look at everything in my life as an opportunity for healing and growth if I choose to take it. So that's how I have approached this. I'm actually going to start my story backing it up because I too have went through the healing process with my parents and with my siblings and with my family. And so I actually have kind of both sides of all of this that I'm going to share. So I'm not sure how this is going to turn out. We may turn this into a two-part series, maybe a three-part. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I really just want to share a message of hope. I want to share a message of healing. And I want those parents out there to know that you're not alone, because we're not alone in this. Of course, I'm going to share it from my point of view. So, from a mother's point of view, from a daughter's point of view, from a sister's point of view, I'm going to share it from my point of view, but know that, you can take anything that I say here and apply it to wherever you're at in your life. So, I know there's a big thing out there. There's a big push right now for people have been talking about trauma and healing trauma and childhood trauma, and I talk about this. So like, this is something that I've talked about for a long time. This is something that I have worked on in myself, but I'm noticing that we're now bringing in traditional therapies, and people are talking a lot about traditional therapies and how they view this healing process versus, to me, I have a very different take on it. So we're going to talk about all of it. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to share. So my hope for you today is that you find part of my story, all of my story inspiring, that you can walk away from this going, "Oh my gosh, okay, I can do this. I can do this," because you can. So I'm going to back up to my journey in the beginning, okay? Before I get to my childhood or my children, I need to talk about my childhood because I remember I grew up in a home, maybe a lot like you, that was probably what we would call now emotionally unavailable. Okay. So I had my needs met. Money was tight, but we always had food to eat. I don't ever remember not being able to go, get something to eat. It may not have been what I wanted to eat, but I don't ever remember going without. Okay. So, as we got older, money was tight. I learned very early on that I needed to babysit or do something to buy my own clothes because I wanted to buy the things that I wanted to buy. So I wanted to buy my own clothes. And so I did that from very early on. I babysat and I did things so that I could buy my own clothes and do my own things. There were six kids, and that made things a little bit tight. So I remember doing that from early on. Now, no, as I talk about my parents today, I talk about them from a place of love. Not that I agree with everything that they do, and not that our relationship is perfect by any means. But as I share my story, I'm sharing my story out of love, just to let you know from my point of view how I felt about it. So, I did feel like that I grew up in a very emotionally unavailable home. We were kind of told to just get over it, suck it up. As I went out into the adult world, I took those beliefs, of course, just like we all do, out into my adult world, into my marriage. And so I brought all that baggage with me. Okay. So, um, as I got out into my adult world, I realized really quickly that I didn't know how I was going to do life. I didn't know how I was going to do parenthood. But I knew that I wasn't going to do it the way that my parents did it. So that's what I knew. I knew from the way that I was raised that I didn't want to do it the same way that my parents had done it, that I wanted to be more there for my kids, and I wanted my kids to feel like that I wanted them and that I loved them and that I cared for them. And I remember even from a very young age just looking forward to being a mom. I wanted to be a mom. I was so thrilled and beyond excited. I couldn't even see myself doing anything else. I remember thinking that from a very, very young, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a mom. I remember even in my earlier, younger years thinking I'm going to be a mom of four kids. And that's exactly what happened. Like, I brought four kids into this world, loved and cared for. And as I was raising my kids, I was realizing that there were some things with my parents that I just didn't like. And to be completely transparent here, the relationship with my parents and my feelings about it and what was going on inside of me is the exact reason that I got into emotional healing, that I started working with clients and really helping them heal their lives. Because I remember looking around going, I don't want to raise my kids the same way. I don't want to be the same way. I do not want to go to in fact, one of my things in my early videos that I have done was I don't want to go to the grave of grumpy ass old lady like my mom. And I'm seeing that come to fruition right now. It's amazing to me. I just remember thinking, I don't want to be like them. I don't want to be so angry and so unemotionally available for anybody. And I wanted to change those. Now, I know today that my parents have just done the best. That's all they know how. That's all they've ever known how to do. They've never had that desire to step into this new place of seeing things differently like I have. And I have definitely had that longing, that knowing that I wanted to discover life. I wanted to see life differently. I wanted to be able to view my life differently, and I wanted to feel different in my life. And that was one of the big steps that I took, especially as an early and I didn't do this right in the beginning. It took me a while to figure out that, oh, should I need to make some changes in my life? I need to do some things differently because this is not how I want to be, and this is not how I want to raise my kids. And so I started my process earlier on for my older kids because I did have four kids. My older kids were teenagers. My younger kids were not, to that point yet. And so, I was kind of in that middle years of raising our kids when I really discovered energy healing. And up until that point, I didn't have it. So, my two older kids were raised very differently than my two younger kids were. I kind of feel like I had like a divided family, like, because I was raised in the religious world. And so my two older kids were raised in that world. And when I started doing my healing work, I really walked away from my religion. I walked away from a lot of things in my life. And so my two younger kids were raised differently. So I say that very transparently. I feel like I raised two separate families, kind of. Um, my daughter, when I met my husband, I already had my oldest daughter. And so she came into the family, and then my husband and I had three kids together. And so that was how our family became. We had this beautiful, my husband, when he proposed to me, told me that if he um, married me, he wanted to adopt my daughter and have her part of his life. And that touched my heart so much that someone cared so much about me and my daughter too, that I came with baggage. So I came into the marriage, you know, three of us were married that day. Not in the literal sense, but you know what I'm saying is we were married, and then I got pregnant right away with my next son, and we had to go to court, and they let us go to court early because the week that they had to be my daughter had to be in my husband's home for a year before he could legally adopt her. And so because I was pregnant and due, they allowed us to go a little bit earlier so that it wasn't on my due date. Because we had gotten married and then gotten pregnant right after that. We just decided that we wanted to jump in and have more kids. We already had Chelsea, or my oldest daughter, so we just decided to jump in and do it. So that's kind of how it rolled. I went to the courthouse very, very pregnant. We went in that day, and it was the most beautiful day ever. My husband adopted my daughter that day. We signed papers, and it was amazing. It was awesome. And then we went on and had another baby, and life carried on. And so this is kind of how things worked. After that, we had the blessing of bringing in two more beautiful children into our lives. And my kids were everything. You know, my kids, I I just remember wanting to be the very best of myself for them. And I feel like that I did that over the years. As my kids grew up, um, I'm going to talk about my relationship with my parents first because I think that's important in all of this. So as my kids grew up, I was seeing things and realizing things. I'd invite my parents to go to all the elementary school, programs and all the things. And my mom and dad would come. They would never come and talk to my kids. They would come late and leave early, and my kids would be so heartbroken. Where's grandma and grandpa? Just wanted to give them a hug. And, my kids wanted so much to be part of their lives. And it just didn't feel like no matter what we did, that they were really like engaged and part of the kids' lives. And I think to the best of their abilities, they were, but I don't know, it broke my heart every time I had to say, well, they already left, or, they didn't come, or whatever the story was for that day. And I realized as I went on in my adult years that the relationship they became very, very hard. And it became hard to navigate kid life and that relationship. And I remember there was a point in my healing work where I decided that, you know what, it wasn't that I estranged myself. I just decided to not be as readily available anymore. I didn't call and include them in things anymore. I just kind of stopped making the effort. And as I did that, they stopped engaging with us, just period. And so that went on for a while. And I remember there was a few years ago, I decided to invite my kids back or invite my parents back it was Christmas Day. And so I invited them to Christmas Day, and I remember my mom came in the house. Now, here again, this is my story. Okay, so this is my story. This was actually just a few years ago, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna invite them. It's the holidays. We'll just invite them to dinner. And so I remember it was a Sunday. Christmas Day was on a Sunday, and I invited my mom and dad to come over for dinner, and my oldest brother was there who has Downs. He's freaking phenomenal. He's funny as all get out, and he was there with us. And I remember we were all laughing and giggling and having such a great time. And we were talking to Sean about what he remembered growing up. And my older brother, Mike, as some of you may know, and this is a whole other story, but I'll just give you, he had um, died my senior year in high school. He actually had taken his own life that year, and so that has been a struggle, of course, with my family. And many years down the road now, Sean, so when we were growing up, it was Sean, Mike, and I. Sean has Downs, and then it was my older brother, and then it was me. And so we were talking about what he remembered about growing up, and it was so fascinating to sit there and listen to him. We were laughing because Sean is funny. Oh my gosh, he is so funny. And we were just laughing, and my mom came in. And I could tell she was immediately in one of those moods. Okay, we'll just put it that way. And she walked through my door and we were all laughing and having so much fun. And she said, what are you guys laughing about? Like, she was mad at us for having fun. Like, and this is in my house. Okay, so, and I said, Mom, we were just talking about growing up and how much what we remembered about Mike. And we were just kind of talking. And she went off on us. Okay. So she went off and she's like, I don't know. I don't want to talk about those days. How can we have to talk about those were the worst days of my life? You kids ruined my life. Those were the worst days ever. This is what she said. And I remember all of my kids were sitting there, and my sister's kids were there. And I just remember thinking, this isn't ever going to happen again. Um, I did not want to make a big deal about it. It was Christmas Day. I'd had a beautiful morning with my family. I'd had a beautiful morning with my kids, and I wasn't going to ruin it for them. But I remember making a promise to myself that day that this wasn't going to happen anymore. And so that was the last day they came and sat at my table until just recently. Now, here again, it's not that I just backed out of their life. If my mom texted me or called me, I answered the phone, I'd talk to her, whatever she wanted, needed. But I just didn't make myself readily available anymore. And so that was kind of how the relationship had been. Um, to me, in my healing world, it's like, don't come to my house and dog on me at my own kitchen table when I just fixed you a meal. You know, if you want to say that at your house, knock yourself out, but not at my house. And so there was just this sense of, and the thing is over the years, we had tried to talk to her, all of us had. We had tried to talk to my mom. You know, my dad just seemed to kind of cave to her, whatever she wanted. And so it wasn't a conversation that could ever be fixed. You know, there was no conversation. We tried several times over the years. This wasn't the first time that I was told that, you know, I ruined my mother's life because she brought these children into the world. And I would say that, you know, I didn't ask for that, but that isn't true because I know from a spiritual point of view, I asked her to be my mother. I asked her to teach me these lessons in my life. And I do thank my mother every day because of my upbringing and because of where I have been and because of the things that I have been through. I'm the woman that I am today. And so that's how I see that relationship. Now, fast forward a couple of years later now, this last year, my dad has been very sick. They are requiring more help, and it has again required a different level of healing because I believe every relationship in our life is an opportunity for healing and growth if we will take it. And so, in every new era, now after my mom left, and I promised myself at my kitchen table that that would never happen again, I went to work on myself. I went to work at Deep Side. Why did that trigger me so much? Why does it make me feel so bad when she says that kind of things? Do I believe that to be true? Well, the answer is yes, or I wouldn't be triggered by it. So, what can I do to step into my own worth as a person? What can I do to start seeing myself differently? It's not that I have to invite her to my table every single day, but if I don't do the work behind it, I am missing out on an opportunity for healing and growth. And it has happened again this last year as my dad has been sick. And I have really had to take a good look at myself again. And am I willing to step into this role of helping my parents as they get older, in spite of everything that has happened over the years? Doesn't mean that it's easy every day. No. I just had a not very good day with them yesterday. I wanted to strangle them both. Does it mean that I'm perfect in all of this? No. Does it mean that I am out there just looking at this and going, oh my gosh, they're, you know, wonderful and our relationship is wonderful? No. I'm sitting here telling you today it's not. It hasn't ever been an easy relationship. It hasn't ever felt easy. It hasn't ever felt like there is a solution or an ending way to like work through this. You know, believe me, I've tried over the years. I've tried so many times to like, let's just clear the air. Let's just make it okay. And it hasn't ever been made known to me a way to make that happen. So what do? I go to work on myself. I go to work so that when she says things like that to me, I don't get triggered. I go to work on myself so that I can become the better version of myself. And so this is the first thing that I'm going to tell you in all of this with our relationship with our families, okay? With our spouses' families, with we can get all bent out of shape. And we can just decide that we're not going to see him. And you have every right to do that if that's what you want to do. But there's another side to this because if you leave it there and don't finish the rest of it, you're missing out on a huge part of the story here. You're missing out on this opportunity for growth. And to me, when you miss out on that, you miss out on the whole reason that you were given this opportunity because this really is an opportunity that you are given for growth if you will take it. So this is where I differ from a lot of people because I see a lot of people saying, well, you just walk away. I don't believe you just walk away. I never just walked away. I was continually working on myself the entire time, becoming the best version of myself the entire time, working through things myself the entire time so that I could become that better version of myself. And I do this with all relationships. I do this within my work. If things come up with clients or things come up, you know, in my work, whatever it is, I go to work on myself. What is it that I need to look at here? What is it that I need to see differently? What is it that I need to let go of? What thoughts, feelings, patterns are going on here that I need to see so that I can become this better version of myself? Now, it doesn't mean that we have to have all people in our lives, but if you're not willing to do the work on yourself and look at your relationship with yourself and the things that you need to work on, you're missing the boat. I believe you're missing the boat. And so this is probably one of the biggest things that, I see right now on social media, they're talking about all these estrangements and all these things going on. If you're not doing your healing work, you're missing the boat for both sides, for all sides. And so this is why I wanted to share the story about my upbringing first. This is still an ongoing story. It's not done. As I said just yesterday, I had to come home and really check myself. There are days that it feels impossible to be around them. And I had to come home and decide am I going to let her, for one, ruin my day? No. Am I going to let her mood, her thoughts, her beliefs, her feelings about me, about life, whatever it is, because she really doesn't, she lashes out and says things and then tries to like mop it up and there's no way to mop up shit. It's like, so am I going to allow that to be the defining moment in my life, or am I going to allow myself to have these moments of healing and growth? And I choose to have moments of healing and growth. Now, even coming home last night, I was frustrated. I reached out to my siblings. I have had to do tons of healing work around my sibling relationships as well. I believe all relationships in our life are an opportunity for growth. Here again, even with your siblings, even if they don't want to be the best version of themselves, are you going to step into the best version of myself? Because I've had to do that with my siblings as well in all relationships in my life. And I bet if you look back, if you're on this healing journey, I bet you can look back and go, yeah, you're right. People are just a mirror for us. And if we don't allow ourselves the opportunity for growth, we're missing out. We're missing out. You're totally missing out. So I want you to see in this first part of the story here that, and today I choose we had Thanksgiving together. Now I did Thanksgiving early. I'll add in this last part of the story here. I did Thanksgiving early this year because my kids all came home early. Those who are in our life. Okay, so this is the next part of the story here, but those are three kids who are in our lives, all came home early. I chose to use that time to have our Thanksgiving dinner early. And so I invited my parents over. Yes, they came and sat at my table again because I did my work, because I could do that with a healthy conscience, knowing that I have done the work on the inside. Some of you may criticize me and go, you know what, I can't believe she does that. That's okay. You get to choose, you get to decide. But for me, I decided to invite them over again. My other siblings were worried that this might be my dad's last year for Thanksgiving. That may or may not be the truth. I don't know what that case is going to be. He's pretty stubborn. It probably won't be this year, but maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell, right? But I chose to do that again this year. And so I did Thanksgiving early on Thanksgiving Day. I did not have my parents over. We had already done our Thanksgiving dinner. We fixed a ham on Thanksgiving Day and had, dinner with my kids, and that's just fine. It's okay. And so I think the moral of the story, or the story that I'm trying to tell you here, is the biggest thing is relationships are rough. Relationships are hard. But if you only have one person who's willing to figure it out, then you have to be willing, that one person, which is me in this case, has to be willing to do the work on themselves and not expect the other people to change. Because here's the deal. When we go around expecting other people to meet our expectations and change, that's not healing. Okay. And it's not that I don't believe that we allow abusive people in our lives. I don't believe if you've got that kind of relationship, I'm not talking about that kind of relationship here. I'm just talking about a relationship that it feels very one-sided and there is no conversation to be had. That's what I feel like the relationship is here. We can't talk about anything. We're not allowed to say that, we can say it, but it doesn't go anywhere. You're not going to get a resolution from it. It's met with resistance. It's met with obstinance. It's met with blaming, and it just doesn't work. It's if you've only got one side who is willing to see it and the other is not, it's pretty hard to heal a relationship from both sides. I think a lot of people sit around and wait for the other person to come to this resolution and then they can heal, and you're missing the boat. Because to me, when we step into it and decide that we're going to heal, we're going to forgive, okay? Because this is one of the steps, and that is I do my forgiveness work, not because they deserve it, but because I deserve to live in peace. I deserve to stand in my worth. I deserve to know who I am. I deserve to stay in this place of knowing that everything is okay and that I am okay in spite of what's going on. And that to me is the true healing process. That is how this really, to me, if you talk about higher states of consciousness, this is a higher state of consciousness. Now, a lot of people in the world would say that's ridiculous. They need to come and they need to apologize and then I can let go. Well, you're going to be waiting a hell of a long time because I already decided a long time ago if I was going to wait for my mom to apologize, it's never going to happen. Never. I don't see her ever in this lifetime ever coming to me and saying, "Oh my gosh, Dana, I am so sorry that I hurt you." Have I given that to my inner child? Yes, because that's what she needs. This is where healing is a fabulous process. So I have given myself the things that I needed, maybe from her, but I give it to myself. This is how healing happens from the inside out. When we start giving ourselves the things that we need and stop waiting for other people to do it for us to become whole. Because the truth is, you are already whole. The truth is, you are already worthy. You were just sitting around waiting for the wrong people to tell you. These people are not capable of giving it to you. And the sooner that you understand that and what you do with the relationship is up to you. For me, I have decided that life is too dang short. It doesn't mean that I am just going to sit back and roll over and take it. Yesterday, when things didn't go well, I just left. I was like, well, I guess you can just deal with it then, figure it out. Um, it's your deal. It wasn't about me. I can make it about me, but it wasn't really about me. And even if it is, and she's unwilling to tell me that, that's not on me. And I think we have to learn to understand relationships in a very different way and learn to navigate them in the best way that we know possible. So I hope this is helpful for you. I would love to hear your take on all of this. Um, what do you believe? What do you think to be true? As you do this, I want you to understand that I am all about empowering people. I am all about helping people step into a higher state of being and a higher understanding so that they can live a happy, healthy, amazing life. And so as I do this work, as I navigate my own life and I share with you the stories of my own life, this is why I do it. Because I want you to see that just because other people maybe have an opinion on how it has to be, that doesn't mean it has to be your way. And even if you're listening to me going, that just doesn't ring true for me, that's fine. But as you leave your comments, I want you to remember that we're all here to support each other And we're all here to do amazing things in life, and I'm here to support you. I am your biggest cheerleader. I am everybody's biggest cheerleader. I always have been, I always will be. And so I would love to hear, though, your comments. Um, and let's do it in an empowering cheerleader way. So, in the next part of this, I'm going to share my story about my kids. This first part, I kind of wanted to give you the lead up story so you kind of understand where I'm coming from and what's going on. And so, in the next part of this, I'm going to talk about my kids, those stories, and how I have navigated the estranged child, we'll call it that. To me, um, I don't know what else to call it. So, in the next one, I will talk about that. I'll talk about how I've navigated that. And I hope this has been very helpful for you. If it has, please let me know in the comments below. Please share this with someone who you think it might be helpful for. And I will see you in the next video. So much love.